Welcome to the Courage to Be podcast. I am your host, Tanya Vasallo. Transitions come in all shapes and sizes. Maybe for you, it's starting a new job, maybe your child's switching schools, or maybe it's something even smaller, like adjusting to a new routine. But I know that we've all felt the stretch of moving from what's familiar into something new. I always say here, choose courage over comfort, right? Instead of staying in our comfort zone, transitions stretch us. And for my family right now, the transition has been moving to a new country, a new continent. And while the setting might be a little bit different than yours, the emotions underneath, the uncertainty, the longing, the need for comfort, those are universal things that I think we all share. And I know that this is not my first big move of my life. I've shared in previous episodes that I moved to the States for a year when I was a teenager. When I was a sophomore, I think it was, I was in Ohio. In my 20s, I also moved back to the States to finish my last 2 years of college in St. Louis. And then I moved from the States back to Spain. And that was a different transition with my husband. But this move feels different because it's not just my transition, it's our family's transition. And holding space for that has definitely stretched me in ways that I had no idea. I thought that we could pick up and go like I did in my teens by myself, like I did in my 20s by myself, like I did in my 30s with my husband. But it looks different when you're doing it as a family and you have kids. So the transition for me, what's worked for me has been journaling, has been movement, like walking my daughter to school, just going for longer walks because I haven't been brave enough yet. I will have to share an episode on this. My husband signed up to a gym that's called BLM here. It cracks me up because it's a gym that does not have air conditioning. And so it's kind of like doing Bikram yoga, but he does weights. And I think he's jogging there too. In 80 degrees weather, 80 something degrees. I think that gym's like in the 80s when he goes in the morning and he's sweating. You're already breaking a sweat when you're exercising, but he's even hotter because, like I said, doing Bikram yoga, but instead of yoga, you're doing your strength training. And so I haven't had the courage for that yet. But anyway, I've been moving. Like that's one of the ways that he's adjusted with the transition, like finding routines that ground him, like he mentions pacing a lot too. He reminds me often, like we have to pace ourselves. Everything is pacing. When I start getting ahead of myself, like I want things to move faster or people to fix things faster or whatever it is that I'm going through. One of his things is pacing. Another thing that grounds him and helps him through transition is finding those familiar routines like the gym. I haven't done the gym yet. My way of movement has been through walking. Like I need to walk. I'm hitting 10,000 plus steps every single day, sometimes even 15,000, like a 6 miles because I'm walking my daughter to school, bringing her back. Then we'll go for another walk, like I'm doing a lot of that. But that's what it looks like for me. For my husband, like I said, it's routines, familiar routines, and the pacing. That's his word. He's coined it for this move. And then for Isla, for my daughter, she's gone through her own transitions. Tears are showing up because she's missing her own comforts of home. Like and one of her breakdowns, she's like, I miss Starbucks. I miss Chipotle. I miss my room back home. Like she misses her friends. And the first time that she had her meltdown, I was panicking and wanting to fix it all too. And like, oh my God, what can I do? And I wanted to take her to a Starbucks the next day in Ubud just to have something familiar. But it didn't work out because the first meltdown was when Ben was sick. But something magical did happen after one of those meltdowns. Like 3 days later, Ben and I were headed to like a kind of like a Home Depot store here in Bali. And when we got to it, it turns out it was inside a mall. And we were so excited. Oh my God, the doors opened to that place and we saw Foot Locker, Starbucks, Bergenstock, H&M, like just all these familiar stores from back home. And you have to remember, we've already been in the jungle by this point, maybe 4 weeks, a month. And this just showed you that we have been doing jungle living. Like there is nothing. We've been walking and the heat of like 80, 90 degrees weather every single day, 99% humidity, bugs everywhere, and flip-flops, no makeup, nothing. It's just we've been walking back and forth from school. Her school has no there's no air conditioning here. There's air conditioning in our bedrooms, at nighttime when we sleep. So when we got to this mall and we saw Starbucks and we saw all these clothing stores and stuff, we ended up bringing her as a surprise. We did an outing and brought her so that she would have all her comforts. And it was a fabulous day. So it's just, I'm sharing these little stories, for all of you asking me about how's Bali and all these other things. But transitions is a big thing about that. So the courage, I think, for all of us is recognizing that each one of us within my family and across families, we all regulate and adapt differently. And my work is to allow space for that instead of expecting us all to just adjust in the same way, especially with a husband and daughter that are neurodivergent. And it's such a reminder that we all adjust differently. When I might have my high, they might have their lows, and vice versa. I might have a low day and they're having a wonderful day. So maybe you're not moving across the world, but maybe you're in your own transition, stepping into a new role or navigating change at home, or simply shifting into, a different season of your life. And what would it look like to you to give yourself and the people you love permission to move through that transition in their own way, at their own pace, and at your own way, and your own way, and at your own pace? Share with me. I'd love to hear. You can share on Substack. You can share on YouTube. Send me an email. And I'd love to hear. I'd love to get some feedback if this is resonating with you. And share with any other friends that might be going through their own transitions. Until our next episode, remember to always choose courage over comfort. If you loved today's episode, it would mean so much if you rate and review The Courage to Be on Apple Podcast. Not only does it help the show to grow, but it also gets you in the running for something amazing. Every month, I draw one lucky winner to receive a complimentary 7-night, 8-day vacation. You'll get to pick from over 3,000 beautiful resorts worldwide. You just cover the taxes and fees like you would with a travel rewards. Airfare is not included. And if you want to double your chances, along with your Apple Podcast review, leave a couple of comments on YouTube. That counts as a second entry. Just send your screenshots to help.thecouragetobe@gmail.com, and you'll find the email in the show notes too. It only takes a moment, and who knows, your next adventure might be closer than you think. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on our next episode of the Courage to Be podcast.